Thanks for staying with NDTV. You're watching The World Report with me, Arjun Samar Mahendran. Let's take a look at what's making headlines this Tuesday. India has blocked the X-platform accounts of Global Times and Xinhua News Agency. Now, these are Chinese state-run media outlets, as well as the Turkish public broadcaster TRT World. Now, this is over disinformation concerns regarding Operation Sindoor, the counter-terrorist op conducted by the army targeting cross-border terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Now, the move followed a public rebuke issued by the Indian embassy in Beijing earlier this week, warning Global Times over its coverage of the military operation. My colleague Vishal Vivek joins us for more on this. Vishal, Chinese and Turkish state media broadcasters have just been blocked by India. What's the latest you're picking up?
Well, Arjun, this was widely expected because both the Chinese and the Turkish media, they had been caught spreading a lot of disinformation right when the Operation Sindoor was going on. So Indian authorities in Beijing had contacted their Chinese counterpart and shared some concerns about 4 or 5 days ago that these fake informations have been shared through your channel. So this action was widely expected. And what Indian authorities have gone on to do is that they have also cracked down on TRT World, which is the public broadcaster from Turkey. They are still, spreading some misinformation as to about 5 aircraft that seemingly was shot down by the Pak pilots. But this is information that has not been validated from any side. They continue to have this information on their website. So this is what the Indian authorities have clamped down against, this information, and this was widely expected.
Well, thank you so much for getting us the latest there, Vishal. A clampdown against disinformation by the Indian authorities. Now, moving on, India has once again slammed China's attempts to rename places in Arunachal Pradesh. Responding to Beijing's latest move or misadventure in this case, the Ministry of External Affairs called it a futile exercise, reiterating that Arunachal is an integral and inalienable part of India. In fact, the MEA dismissed China's actions as vain and preposterous, asserting that creative naming cannot change ground realities. Tragedy in the Bahamas as Indian origin US student Gaurav Jaisingh died after accidentally falling from a hotel balcony. Now, Jaisingh, a student at the Bentley University in Massachusetts, was in the Bahamas for a senior class trip just days before his graduation. The accident occurred on Sunday, shocking classmates and family members. And US President Donald Trump has met Syrian interim President Ahmad al-Shara in Saudi Arabia just moments ago. The photos are on your screen. Now, this comes a day after Washington lifted sanctions on Syria, with Trump saying the move aims to give them a chance at greatness. That's right, the meeting, described as brief, to say the least, is the first between US and Syrian leaders since 2000. Now, until recently, Syria's new president has gone from being a jihadist, with the US offering a $10 million reward for his arrest, to shaking hands with President Trump, as you see on your screens right now. And after ousting Assad and pledging to fight terror, his government is now seen as Syria's path to recovery. Trump continues his Gulf state tour with Qatar as his next stop. The Trump administration has cut another $450 million in federal grants to Harvard University, accusing it of fostering anti-Semitism and liberal bias. Now, the move comes after $2.2 billion in grants were frozen earlier. Harvard, meanwhile, has filed a legal challenge, pushing back against demands to limit pro-Palestinian activism and overhaul leadership. Meanwhile, President Trump has also threatened Harvard's tax-exempt status and its ability, in fact, to host foreign students. The federal judge in Pennsylvania has ruled that President Trump can invoke the Alien Enemies Act to, in fact, deport Venezuelan gang members, marking the first court ruling in his favor on the 1798 law. In fact, however, the judge has ordered the administration to give 21 days notice and also allow challenges to deportations. The ruling contrasts with previous decisions in New York, Colorado, and Texas that rejected Trump's use of the law in similar cases. US President Donald Trump has said in a new trade deal with China is in place, focusing on opening up Chinese markets to American businesses. Now, Trump highlighted his long-standing relationship with President Xi and called the agreement a significant step forward. Now listen in to what the president had to say.
I think the biggest surprise from this weekend, it was a week ago Friday where I saw that China announced, quote, if the president is serious, we will be willing to negotiate with him. And Scott Bessent, your Treasury Secretary, met with their representatives in Geneva on Saturday. On Monday, you're announcing a trade, or actually on Sunday, you announced a deal with China.
Yeah.
How did that happen that quickly?
Well, they met on Saturday and Sunday, and they had a deal pretty much from the beginning. It was the concept of a deal. And, one of the things that, as you know, it's sort of a 90-day deal as we negotiate other aspects. But one of the things I think that could be most exciting for us and also for China is that we're trying to open up China. Because, as you know, many years ago, we opened up the USA. Now it's time for China to open up, and that's part of our deal. And we're going to open up China. To me, that's the most exciting part. But yeah, we made a deal. The relationship is very good. I've always had a good relationship with President Xi. It was interrupted because of COVID, obviously. But outside of that, I've always had a great relationship, a lot of respect for him. And we'll see how that all works out. But we have the confines of a very, very strong deal with China. But the most exciting part of the deal, it was mentioned, but we don't talk about it yet. That's the opening up of China to U.S. business. And that would be like opening up a whole new world, and I think it would be even better for China. So I think we'll be able to make that deal, I hope.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that he will in fact wait in Turkey for direct talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin, calling it a test of Moscow's commitment to peace. Now, Putin proposed the meeting amid Western demands for a ceasefire. Washington, meanwhile, supports the talks, while Europe insists on a ceasefire before they take place. Now, the high-stakes meeting is set to take place in Istanbul this week.
I've also been working relentlessly to end the terrible bloodshed between Russia and Ukraine, and very importantly, talks are being held in Turkey later this week, probably on Thursday. And they could produce some pretty good results. Our people are going to be going there. Marco's going to be going there. Others are going to be going, and we'll see if we can get it done.
The French President Emmanuel Macron has warned Russia of fresh sanctions targeting its energy and financial sectors, and Moscow fails to agree to a ceasefire soon. European leaders are pushing for a 30-day halt in fighting, but President Putin has called for direct talks with Ukraine instead. Now, Macron's remarks follow Germany's similar calls as the EU faces challenges in rallying member states for tougher actions. Iran will hold talks with European powers in Istanbul on Friday to revive the 2015 nuclear deal. The meeting comes as both sides seek to position themselves before US-Iran negotiations in fact resume. European nations are weighing the snapback of UN sanctions if no progress is in fact made. Relations, meanwhile, have soured over Iran's missile program and support for Russia, but both sides are keeping dialogue open. US President Donald Trump has defended Qatar's offer of a luxury Boeing 747 jetliner to temporarily serve as the Air Force One. In fact, calling it a very nice gesture from a US ally, even as the move continues to ignite fierce criticism over its legality, optics, and potential national security risks even. My colleague Parmeshwar Baba explains the details. Take a look.
In a plot twist worthy of a geopolitical thriller, Donald Trump is once again making headlines. But this time it's not for what he said, but for what he might accept. A $400 million Boeing 747 luxury jet from none other than the Qatari royal family. The US president says it's not a personal freebie, it's just a gift to America. But critics on both sides of the aisle are asking, is this patriotic pragmatism or the diplomatic equivalent of an Instagram influencer saying, gift it? Only a fool would not accept this gift on behalf of our country. This is what Trump has roared on his Truth Social account. And the US president insists the aircraft, which is a high-end Boeing 747, tricked out with luxury interiors, is a cost-saving move for American taxpayers. After all, why pay Boeing billions to refurbish Air Force One when you can get a gently used palace in the sky for free? But I'll tell you what the problem is. That plane would need hundreds of millions in upgrades to meet US security standards. There are also growing concerns about spy tech potentially embedded in that jet that Saudi Arabia will give him. And yes, there's the gift legality. Can a sitting president accept a $400 million gift from a foreign government? Even Trump's own MAGA camp seems quite uncomfortable at the moment. Senator Rand Paul called this bad optics, and Laura Loomer, who's no stranger to any controversial matters herself, said that the jet plan sends the wrong signal. But while fielding jet questions, Trump was also busy playing deal-maker-in-chief in Riyadh. He boasted of $600 billion in deals, a figure that sounds great until you dig into the details. So here's what we found. Only $283 billion can actually be tracked or confirmed, and much of that was already in motion before Trump even got elected. And that biggest defense deal, the $142 billion we've been talking about, it's a package of letters of intent as we speak, not signed contracts. So is this a real economic win or an inflated pitch, deck dressed up in gold-plated thobes? Well, many are questioning whether this tour is about diplomacy, defense, and development, or Donald. Is the US leveraging its influence for strategic gain, or is Trump turning foreign policy into a personal branding exercise? Well, many experts point out that he's certainly selling it that way.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has unveiled a major cabinet reshuffle, appointing Indo-Canadian Anita Anand as the country's foreign minister. Now, Carney announced a two-tier ministry with members of the cabinet and secretaries of state. There are 28 cabinet ministers, to be precise, and 10 secretaries of state in Carney's cabinet. Now, the changes, in fact, follow Carney's election victory and aim to reset ties with US amid trade tensions. Meanwhile, my colleague Maha Siddiqui joins us from Vancouver with this report.
Important elevation there for Anita Anand, though Anita Anand has even in the past held very important portfolios like the Defense Ministry, the Science and Innovation Ministry, as well as the Transport Ministry. But this time around, the Foreign Ministry comes in as a very critical ministry for Canada at a time when there are geopolitical shifts, when its relationship with the United States has changed so dramatically that these portfolios become even more critical as Canada goes out and reaches out to other allies and partners. The top ministries, as you have pointed out, Mark Carney has chosen continuity. We are seeing Dominique LeBlanc and Francois-Philippe Champagne, along with Anita Anand, as the top ministers who will be engaging largely in the talks with the US as well. The Canadian government is looking at a new and renewed agreement with the US as far as economic and security is concerned. And therefore, Mark Carney has chosen those people who have been dealing with the US and with trade issues in the past as well. But clearly talking about Anita Anand, a person of Indian origin, she is a person who jumped into politics, fought her elections first time in 2019, this time from the riding of Oakville. Earlier on, when the Trudeau government was in trouble, there were murmurs that she might not contest elections again. But the stunning comeback of the Liberal Party meant that Anita Anand fought elections again, won, and is now the Foreign Minister of Canada. The other important Indian origin person you mentioned there with regards to the Ministry of International Trade, again, a critical one, considering at a time when Canada is looking at Indo-Pacific. And in that context, India could also become a country that Canada will have to realign and engage differently from what it has done in the past.
Now, across the border, the infamous Menendez brothers are in the public eye yet again. Now, the development comes as the duo has now been resentenced to 50 years in prison by a Los Angeles County court. Lyle and Eric Menendez, 18 and 21 years at the time, were sentenced to life without the possibility of parole back in 1996 over the gruesome 1989 murder of their parents. After having served 30 years in prison, they're now looking at the possibility of a parole under the new resentencing. Meanwhile, their lawyer says it's a huge step in bringing the brothers back home. Jose Mujica, Uruguay's former president and global symbol of humility and progressive reform, has died aged 89. Also known as Pepe, Mujica led Uruguay from 2010 to 2015, enacting pioneering laws on gay marriage, abortion, and cannabis legislation. A former guerrilla fighter, Mujica was admired for his simple lifestyle and straight-talking manner. Tributes have meanwhile been pouring in from across Latin America and the rest of the world. As time we step into a short break, I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching The World Report. On to some business news now. Tesla's board is reportedly exploring a new compensation package for CEO Elon Musk. Now, this also includes fresh stock options. This reportedly comes as Musk appeals a court ruling that voided him his earlier $56 billion payday. Microsoft has laid off around 6,000 employees worldwide as part of a cost-cutting drive. The tech giant said it is streamlining operations, cutting management layers, and focusing on AI-driven efficiency. The layoffs, meanwhile, will impact around 3% of its global workforce. Now, despite posting strong earnings recently, the company has said that the move is aimed at staying competitive in a dynamic and variable market. Moving closer to its India entry, EV giant Tesla is reportedly planning to set up an assembly unit in Maharashtra's Satara district. A Business Standard report said that the Elon Musk-led company will be setting up a completely knockdown or CKD plant, which would help it keeping its component import duty costs in check. Now, CKDs, for perspective, are assembly plants where all the different finished components of a vehicle are shipped from different locations and facilities, local assembly capabilities for a company. Asian markets, Asian shares rather edged up with the dollar struggled as cooling US inflation and a tariff truce with China raised hopes of Fed rate cuts. Investors remain wary, though, as global trade tensions continue to linger. Samsung is buying Germany's FLAC Group for $1.7 billion to expand in artificial intelligence data center cooling. Analysts have said that it's a strategic move, but a modest move as well. Now, this as investors await bigger chip-related deals from the company. Sony expects flat profits this year, factoring in a $100 billion yen tariff hit despite a sharp drop in PS5 sales. The company is betting on first-party game releases and a financial unit spin-off to drive growth this year. Foxconn is set to post a 72% rise in first-quarter profit, driven by strong demand for AI servers. But the heavy reliance on China, geopolitical risks continue to cloud its outlook. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang's net worth has soared to a whopping $120 billion after striking a major AI chip deal with Saudi Arabia. NVIDIA's market value surpassed the $3 trillion mark as AI demand shows no signs of slowing. In the world of sports, a face-off, in fact, has erupted between the BCCI and Cricket South Africa. This is over the availability of South African players for the remainder of this year's IPL season. Cricket South Africa has directed several top players to return home by the 26th of May to in fact prepare for the World Test Championship final starting the 11th of June in London. Now, this condition, to be noted here, was part of their original IPL contracts as well. However, the tournament now will be extended till the 3rd of June, and players whose franchisees enter the knockouts are caught in the tussle. Unlike Australia, South Africa has made it clear that its players cannot stay beyond the 26th of May, putting pressure on IPL teams. My colleague Rika, meanwhile, joins me for the latest on this. Some sort of a tussle appearing here. Rika, can you break it down for us, unpack it for our viewers?
Well, you see, the BCCI has told IPL's chief operating officer Hemang Amin to speak to the players and the cricket boards and ascertain their availability. BCCI wants all the players who are, at least for the franchises that are in contention for the playoffs, to return to India. what we are seeing out now is a potential conflict playing out between BCCI and Cricket South Africa, because 8 of their players who are in franchises that are in contention for IPL playoffs have also been selected for the World Test Championship final. Now, what happens in the World Test Championship final? It is that medal of Test Championship that you play for once in 3 years. Australia will be facing off against South Africa in London from 11th of June. According to the original contract, all players had to be back with their respective countries by 26th of the month, but that now seems difficult with
Now-
the tournament extending till 3rd of June.
Well, you put it in perspective there, Rika. Thank you so much for that. Now, moving on, Italy's Jasmine Paolini reached the Italian Open semi-finals, becoming the first Italian woman, in fact, to do so since 2014, after defeating Russia's Dina Schneider in 3 sets. On the men's side, world number 1 Yannick Sinner extended his winning streak to 24 matches with a straight sets victory over Argentina's Francisco Cerundolo. Paolini, meanwhile, will now face American Peyton Stearns for a place in the finals. Masters champion Rory McIlroy will play the next 2 editions of the Australian Open in a major boost for the historic tournament. The Northern Irishman, who won the title in 2013, praised Australia's iconic Melbourne sandburnt courses and said that the event's success is important for global golf. The Australian Open, first held in 1904, more than 120 years ago, has struggled in recent years to attract top global stars. With just weeks to go before the World Test Championship final against South Africa, Australia's search for a permanent opening partner for Usman Khawaja continues. Head selector George Bailey has said that several players are under consideration, including Travis Head and youngster Stam Constance, while Marnus could also be an option. The final will be played at the Lords from the 11th of June to the 15th. In the world of entertainment, Cannes 2025 kicked off in style with Quentin Tarantino opening the prestigious film festival with a surprise appearance nonetheless, setting the tone for a star-studded celebration of cinema. Day one also saw dazzling red carpet appearances by Bella Hadid and other international celebrities, making it rather a glamorous start to the festivities. Representing India, meanwhile, was Payal Kapadia as a jury member, while veteran Hollywood actor Robert De Niro was also honored with the coveted Palme d'Or. Britain's King Charles III and Queen Camilla attended an event hosted by a charity working to preserve wildlife in Asia. The event included a tribute to Camilla's late brother, Mark Shand, who was the charity's founder. The Queen presented the Mark Shand Award to conservatist Dr. Bibhuti Prasad Lakhar, who works in the field of elephant research and conservation. Charles, meanwhile, paid tribute to those who work in conservation on the ground. The royal couple also viewed sculptures that were part of a public art trail in London over the Easter period and met with artists while they were at it. Abel Tesfaye has said that the 1990 psychological horror film Jacob's Ladder was a key inspiration for his new movie Hurry Up Tomorrow. The performer, better known as the Weekend stars in the movie directed by Trey Edward Schultz. Jenna Ortega and Barry Keoghan also star in the film. Hurry Up Tomorrow hits American theaters on the 16th of May. And well, it's a wrap on this Tuesday edition of the World Report. Take care and have a wonderful day.